So first of all, can we give you guys a round of applause? We love you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for staying.
Yay! Thank you for coming in the middle. This feels, now I feel better. I was like,
You don't usually get success when you like try to ask an entire group of adults
Yeah.
to move. It's like not usually very effective.
but I think it's drinks after, so everybody,
Mico's powerful.
everybody's adapting. We talked about adaptation.
So we're going to get this conversation started. My name is Stephanie Rodriguez. I'm the Vice President of Policy and Engagement at AnitaB.org, and it is truly my honor to sort of be sitting up here with these esteemed panelists, and we have a great conversation for you all today. We're going to talk about inclusion and diversity and how that really fuels technological innovations and advancements. So you've all met Mico this morning, but we are just going to quickly do some quick introductions of the panelists and then jump into the conversation.
Okay, so my name's Rachel Hover. So I am the Tech Risk Director at Capital One within UK Cyber. Do you want me to talk any more, or is that it?
We're going to go into your stories later.
We'll go into stories. Yeah. Okay, so that's me.
Hi, I'm Heron. I'm an engineering manager at 2 Sigma.
And for those of you who weren't here earlier, I'm Mico Yuk. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called BI Brains.
All right, so the first question, we just want to set the stage a little bit. If you could each tell us a bit about your journey and how that has informed your perspective of workplace diversity and its importance.
You can go first, Rachel.
You want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah, I was first this morning, so.
She was first this morning, okay. So I'm not your natural technologist, so I have an interesting journey to why I'm here, and there's a couple of key reasons which I'll share in a sec. So I didn't go to university, so I guess I'm diverse to a lot of people I work with within technology, certainly within the company that I work for, and it's taken me a long time to admit that for those of you that have known me a while. So one of the reasons why diversity in particular, so diversity of thought and physical diversity is important to me is, I suppose I link back to my children. I've got 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. And one of the things that I find fascinating is that even now my girls are 20 and 22. One's studying physics, one's studying biology at university, their choice, not mine. Is that the more that they grew up through school, the more times that they found that actually being a girl was, a lot of people ask them the question is, are you sure you want to do that? That's for boys, isn't it? And every time both of them said, no, I can do what I want to do. And the more I learn, the more I talk to their friends and things. It's one of the reasons why it's really important to me. And also probably more grounding is I have a 16-year-old son. And up until he was about 11, he didn't really see a difference between girls and boys. You have sisters, which aren't girls, so there's a very right. But for him, he didn't really see why there was a problem and why, Mummy's interested in making sure that we balance people, that, we have a balanced workforce within tech, and why it's important that we have really super technical people, but we also have people that are prepared, that can translate technology conversations into business talk and back the other way, which is very much where I sit. Up until he started secondary school, when all of a sudden he realized that maybe sisters are girls after all, when his friends thought that. So, and then I roll that into the workplace with people that I work with. I've been in the position I work in tech now, in cyber and in risk, where sitting in a room full of guys is not unusual. I really want to make a difference to that. And the only way that when I take a step back and think about how I can do that is to share the reasons why it's important to me. Because I don't think it's not necessarily about the skills. We all get to the same place. We just all have our own journeys and stories. And the more we can share those reasons, the more we can help people to know if you believe, you can be whatever you want to be. And that's why it's important to me.
Thank you.
So.
Cool. I guess we'll just go down.
Yeah, feel free to go, Ali.
Great. So I'm actually pretty lucky. I've had a fairly traditional path. I was I did logo in kindergarten and basic in 3rd grade, and I started coding. I was
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school in New York City. I was very lucky. But it's funny, and we'll talk a little bit about this. But your stories of your daughters resonates. My Calc 2 professor in college wanted to know why I was in his class, because what would I ever need Calc 2 for? And I said, well, I'm an engineer. And I'm an engineering major. And it's computer engineering and electrical engineering. And he said, why would you do that? And and of course I desperately needed to pass his class, which I did. But it's amazing how just the assumptions people make. But to me, my career has been basically building products, and mostly consumer products. And to me, diversity is important because I also actually teach. I'm an adjunct professor at NYU,
Nice.
Teaching entrepreneurship, and I feel like if you want products that represent you in the world, you need to build them. A lot of what I teach is customer empathy. How do you know your customers, right? You are not your customer, step one, admit that. But it's even better if you are your customer, right? And some of the best products out there in the world were built by people who are having that problem, and they solved their own problem, and it turned out there are lots of people like them who had that problem. So I just think if we want the products we need in the world and the innovation, we need to build them for ourselves to solve our problems.
Sounds like a familiar motto. So AnitaB.org envisions a world where the people who create technology mirror those for whom they create it, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
That's awesome. Okay, so who wasn't here this morning so I don't bore anybody? Okay, one person. Well, I won't go over. I won't go over the whole thing. I was thinking about what I would say up here because I told my story. I think the two things that come to mind when it comes to diversity is growing up in the Caribbean to multicultural parents. One thing that never happened that I felt was beneficial was my parents never put a box around us to the point where when we came to the U.S., I didn't even know I was black and mixed. We were just Caribbean. I actually learned I was some Asian mixed chick in the U.S. And I think that was helpful. We were just never told we couldn't do it. I think for a while I thought my dad maybe wanted boys because we did everything that you would do with sons. We did fishing, we did catching crab, we did boating, we did camping. I mean, there wasn't a limit. He never said, oh, I have two girls. We just did everything. We fixed the cars, we helped them build, all types of stuff. So I think that was useful. I do also think from a diversity perspective, why it's important is, I mentioned to you in my keynote this morning, I don't actually know another founder like me in my industry still. As of today, I'm in the business intelligence industry. And so I think that even in 2019, I feel like I've become this pinnacle in my industry, almost of hope. And I'm just hoping to make that layer more diverse going forward. And I hope to be kind of this pinnacle or example of what that could look like. So I do realize, and it happened probably 3 or 4 years ago, that my purpose is a lot bigger than what I do, including making money. And it helps to inspire a lot of people. So my hope is to just show other people that it can be done, especially within my industry, which is very, very heavily male dominated. If you guys think IT in general is dominated, come to business intelligence. It is hardcore ERP. Anybody here familiar with ERP systems, right? Those back end stuff that you guys are a lot of you are young that don't know about, you never want to know about, right? ERP, enterprise reporting, what does it stand for? P is processing, or I don't even know, platform. That's that hard stuff, right, that you guys may never experience, but that's the industry where I come from, and so that is definitely the boys' industry. So for me, it's really good to be and have these organizations and see diversity, and I try to make sure a company is a pinnacle of that, whether it's on purpose or not. I don't discriminate, but we have a very diverse kind of workforce in our industry that I'm very proud of. And usually we're the most diverse group at a lot of the events, believe it or not. People come by the booth, and it's BI Brains, and they can't tell what's what. So we got all kinds of things running around. And I like it that way. The only thing you could tell is our shirt.
Right.
And some people don't want to make comments on it, but I've seen customers come and stare, and they're watching everybody run around. It looks all different. And they're just okay, wow, all right.
Yeah. So I think that sort of segues nicely into the second part of this journey conversation, which is the challenges and how you overcome them along the way.
So we have all night.
Right. So actually, this is a hopper by 3. I don't know if you got the memo, but
yeah, let's have a long time. Challenges, huh?
So we talked about sort of pathways that maybe are not super traditional or being the only. Can you talk a little bit about any kind of challenges you might have experienced and your strategy for overcoming them? I'm
happy to start because I did this morning. Anybody remember the salad story this morning? Let me start there. So that was very fresh and recent. But that didn't start there. My first experience was when I was working in New York. So having Ali next to me, it came fresh to mind. And I was hosting a meeting with a few executives. I won't put the company name on the line here because I do love them. They helped to build my career. But I remember getting ready for the meeting and being asked to grab the water. So I politely said, sure, I'll be right back. Then I remember hearing the VP say, where is this Mico person? This is late. I said, if you give me 1 minute, I'll grab the water, then I'll get started. If I could show you what his face looked like. And so I went, no, guess what? I said, no, let me go grab the water. I'm gonna go get it. We're gonna be late, which means you're gonna sit down and wait and then come back. And so I diligently took my time, grabbed it, right? You take a little bit longer because he's impatient. You come back and he's sitting there and I said, so here you go. I don't know if you want a room temperature or cold. I said, so I'm gonna get started, right? And so that set a tone where I remember where it was like, and then he kind of said, I'm sorry. I said, it's nothing to be sorry about. The reason I grabbed the water is so you don't forget this, right? And the salad thing, I told you guys I gracefully just said, I'm Mico Yuk, but this guy looked mortified. And so the fact that he looked mortified was enough for me. But that happened at a big event. I mean, realistically, I could have been embarrassed, but I think at this point in time, I just don't care.
Yeah.
I'm at that stage in my career where I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. So I didn't grab him the salad, so that's important, but I did say just introduce myself and just keep it moving. So what that told me coming to Anita Borg is that we have so much more work to do.
We have a lot of aspiring, newly entering people in their careers. Do you have any comments for them about navigating a similar situation?
Yeah, I recommend
Can you be as bold?
education. So one thing that I don't recommend is reacting in a negative or nasty way.
Yeah.
So when I sat down and I looked at that situation, what I realized is that this guy may have been underexposed. So I had one good mentor that told me never assume. He said, always give people the benefit of the doubt. I never forgot that. And so I always try to take the approach that the only reason you did this is you didn't know better. I try not to assume that you're being an a-hole, because then I get mad, right? So I always try to be positive and go, oh, you probably weren't exposed. So now that this happened, maybe I'll put you on the side and say, hey, by the way, I didn't really appreciate that. Oh, no, Mico, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. They said, it's not because I'm Mico, I don't expect special treatment. It's just that's highly inappropriate. And then they'll say, I didn't know. I really didn't know. And you can see it in their face. So I think that one thing we have to realize is that the awareness is getting out there, but some people, it's not on purpose. And I think if we need to have some grace, because we're ignorant about other stuff as well. So that's my one kind of takeaway, is not to become some angry, crazy, raving woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Easier
mean,
said than done.
yeah, we could talk all night. When we met before to get to know each other, we were sharing stories. Like we could literally be here for hours. But I'll actually share a similar one. So my name is spelled A-L-I, which depending on the culture you're from is a Middle Eastern male. So for the longest time, before there were like pictures and Outlook, I would show up to meetings and, being, with lots of other introverted engineers, everyone just sat down. And then usually someone would be like, where's Ali? He's supposed to be starting this meeting. He called this meeting. Where is Ali? And I'd be like, hi, I'm Allie. It's a pleasure to meet you, right? It's okay. You probably thought I was a man. It happens, but, and then they would just sit there and be like, it's the assumptions that people make. I mean, we were talking earlier about, and this we can talk about with the recruiting stuff as well. One of the things I've found is I'm what's called a senior hiring manager for our company, for 2 Sigma. And so I basically can make the call whether a candidate, gets an offer or not. And I can't tell you the amount of candidates I interview. And I'm like, great, walk me through, a project you've built end to end. That's literally my standard interview question, because it's always interesting to see where people go. And I've had multiple candidates, one in particular, who is like, now I'm going to get technical. Do you know what a database is? And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, please go ahead. And I usually give people kind of one strike, where it's like, oh, okay, like we're just sitting. And by the way, I walk into interviews now and I'm like, hi, I'm Allie. I'm an engineering manager here. I know a lot about you because I have your CV. Let me tell you my entire career. I literally walk through my career, right, in about 30 seconds, just so, to give them context and give them the benefit of the doubt. And literally this guy kept asking me, are you sure I'm not getting too technical on you? And of course, he basically did not get hired because I said, send him home now, please. But yeah, it happens way too often than not, which is why I actually think you need diversity in your hiring panels, interview panels, but we can talk about that later.
So when I was thinking about what story to share, I guess it's one of those where about choices when it comes to these types of things. And I absolutely agree with Mico. You just need to walk away.
Yeah.
Killing people with kindness is a really good thing to remember. And not raising to it when people think you should isn't a bad thing.
That's not to say it's easy.
No, it's not. And biting your lip and going around kicking the wall is not a bad thing either. But one story I want to share is when I have two small daughters. We ended up moving house, so two small children, relocating 200 miles away, and I needed to find a new job because we were relocating with my husband's job at the time. And I wasn't working for my current company, working for somebody else. Went to the lending centre for this particular high street bank, who I will not name. I'm hoping they're better now. But went there with the recommendation of, hey, this is one of our really good managers. You should really do. So this was more of a meet and greet as opposed to an interview. So was really lucky. It was pretty much, I'm pretty confident now looking back on it. If I'd been a guy, it would have been, hey, here's your desk, here's your seat, and everything else. So met the guy that would have been my boss, shook his hand, and he went, oh, hi, Rachel, how are you? And I'm like, okay, fine, a bit odd. And he said, I hear you have a young family. And I said, yes, 2 daughters, yeah, they're great. Where are they? I'm like, they're at nursery? Oh. And he said, we expect you to work long hours. Is that okay? And I'm like, yep, I'm used to that. I've always done that. That's what I've always done. And he said to me, well, if you work long hours, who makes your husband's tea?
Oh, wow. Oh.
And I said to him, I said, do you know, I hadn't thought about that. I said, but I think, given the fact that
extra grease.
Extra grease. My children, my daughters don't starve. I'm assuming that when he makes their tea, he makes his own. And he said, all right. And he said, and you do realise that you would be the only female on my leadership team, and you're okay with that? And your husband's okay with you sitting in a room of men for a big proportion of your day? And I said, do you know, I think he's fine, but if you'd rather I checked with him, I will. And so the conversation, it was more like that. And and I could just feel myself. But there was a little bit, I went over the boiling point and went back down the other side. Needless to say, I made that decision there and then, and my career was on a complete trajectory and took actually what was a step back to go forward to work for somewhere else. Because there was part of me that said, I'm not compromising all my personal values. Yep. I went home to my husband, and he went, absolutely, he was going to go and I'm like, look, I'm a big girl, I can do things. But, that was a few years ago now, and I made that choice at the time. It was so hard. We moved away, so I had to find a job somewhere else. And I was pretty, you get to the point where you go, hey, I need to do this. I'd love to say that that's a unique story. Roll forward, and I was sharing this with the guys on the call. A couple of weeks ago, we did or a couple of months ago actually, we run some meetups locally in London, and we have like a bar, and I was doing some drinks and stuff like that. And this guy just walks up, and he just said, "Coffee," like that to me. And I could feel that it was the same sort of like when you just don't think you're hearing something, and. It was what was really lovely, and the difference when I was reflecting on this, I thought this was so nice, was I just went like that, and one of the guys I work with stood next to me, and he went, hi, he went, let me introduce Rachel to you, she's one of our cyber directors, and this guy just went, oh, that's nice for you, and he just went, no, did you hear, whatever. Anyway, this guy has done himself no favours. He doesn't come to our meetups anymore. He's not welcome, but not because of anything that I've done, and I haven't said anything, done anything, or whatever. But really, for me, one of the things like reflecting back is that with the instance a few years ago, I looked at it and thought, maybe it's me. And you do this whole introspection. And I think as women do, as a generalization, tend to do more of that about is it me? Is it whatever? Whereas this time I thought, actually, that's more him than me. And he's got a lot more to learn from that. And actually, what was really nice was one of the guys took him to one side and had a chat with him, but I didn't need to do anything. And I think that's the bit where, the advocacy and us doing, improving diversity together is going to be something that's great, because it's a much more powerful story somebody else doing, a man to a man saying, that's just not on, which isn't, and those things continue, so.
Yeah, so, all jokes aside, getting the tea and everything else, these things are really serious, right? Like, these microaggressions add up. Not everybody has, the the ability to wait to find that next job so that they could turn down a toxic environment, what do we do about it, right? What do we do when we're recruiting for inclusive teams? What tips or advice do any of you have around inclusive recruitment, creating those cultures, chipping away at that toxicity?
So I could take it from a founder perspective. It's a story that comes to mind, but we don't have enough time for me to tell it.
Oh, yes.
Merging a bunch of questions because
Yes.
we're like,
Yeah, she was talking. My brain was like, a really interesting story came to mind. I think in a toxic environment, you just try to be the light and be positive, and I think you try to find that attracts like-minded people. What I've at least learned to do is just blank it out. And like I said, I'm more about trying to create education, right? Which is kind of saying, hey, I think we should look at this a different way. Like I think I mentioned earlier, whether it's in conversation or talking, that every executive I work with, I always take the time to lay out when they say, I was talking to a group here, when they say, oh, how do we find another Mico? I'm like, you don't need another Mico. You need more women. Mm-hmm. Let's just get this clear. I'm not some anomaly that fell off of a tree. I'm great at what I do, but there are a lot of phenomenal women out there that could do exactly what I was doing. So I use some of those opportunities as well when that conversation comes up to kind of insert education and knowledge, and I've definitely seen results. So that's my small way of trying to get right in the forefront of it.
You're not the exception.
Correct, because it's always, oh, we need one. I'm like, no. I'm good at what I do, but there are a lot of talented women who didn't even see the application, right? And in one case with one executive, one of the conversations we had is he kept saying, but they're not applying. So I said, well, show me who does the recruitment. And he went, oh, yeah. Okay, so he actually hired an external firm and then started bringing in more diversity. So, sometimes those inserts, is at least what I do, have had big results. Education.
Yeah. Well, and I also think, if you work at a larger company, there are a couple of things. One, if you're not involved in your interviewing or hiring process, go talk to recruiting, go talk to HR, get involved. Usually there's some training involved, but if you want to hire people that are, similar to you and different usually than your surroundings, people who are like that want to also see themselves reflected in the company. So get involved, one. Two, if you're a hiring manager or if you have any influence in the hiring process, try to make sure you see as many male or female candidates if you can. It depends on how things are. A lot of times it'll be like, oh, I got 10 resumes, great, let me move on to the next step. But you can actually push back on if you're working with an external agency or even your internal recruiters to say, hey, look, this doesn't look like a very, very diverse pool. I'd like to see a more diverse slate of candidates before I move forward to the next step. And three, basically, because I think it's all about what can we do, hold your managers accountable. Say, it takes guts to have the conversation with your managers that is, hey, I don't see a lot of diversity around me. What are you doing? How can I be helpful? Come with ideas. At 2 Sigma, it's great. We have an employee resource group, Women at 2 Sigma. We have many others as well, Out Sigma, all those things. But there's lunches and outings, and we all try to kind of support each other through it. And so even if it's just saying, hey, I noticed people don't get together a lot. How, do you mind if I organize a lunch and then, or get, interview candidates? There's just many things I think you can do, yourselves. You don't have to wait for management to come down and say, yes, we're doing diversity and here's our plan, because that's hard and it also takes a long time.
It's scary sometimes.
Yes.
They go from one extreme to the next.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing is about being authentic,
yes.
and it's about living and breathing what you say. And I think it's all, improving diversity within technology isn't just around the particular minority that we're thinking about. It's about everybody, whether you're in tech or not. Agreed. And it's also about demystifying what technology is all about, right? So that's a massive thing. Having worked in and with tech for a long time now, the biggest challenge we have is that it tends to be more women and I think Mico said it this morning. If you think, a lot of women will think, oh, I can't do that job. It's around being brave, and I've got numerous examples where people have come to talk to me through the recruitment process and said, hey, I'm not sure I can do this job. And you go, well, can you do this? Can you do that? Well, yeah, I can. Well, you can work in tech. And a lot of it is around, the whole education and learning and sharing stories. So one of the things we've been trying to do is, find inspirational role models, what makes them special. How can you learn from them? And also, it's not easy. Everybody gets to the same destination, but through lots of different ways. And I think that's the important thing to remember, that there is no standard route now into technology. And not every technologist has to be a software engineer. So sorry for anybody that is a software engineer. It's a great skill to have. But I think that now technology is so much more. It's part of everybody's role.
Yep.
So one of the things that we've been trying to do both internally and externally is how do we encourage people to come from different areas and be confident enough that they can apply and work within technology. That's the most important thing, and how we're going to continue to improve our diverse pipelines and getting more people to apply without being positively discriminatory, because that's just the wrong thing to do.
Are there any efforts internally? So say you start getting those more diverse applications, you start getting applications from talent that didn't go to university, for example. Are there any strategies happening inside of your companies to sort of change the mindset of where talent comes from? Are you seeing anything like that happening internally?
So I can answer that one quickly. From a educational perspective, we've been on a real journey over the last few years, I think, and it's a real positive journey where I think there was a big assumption, certainly when I started, where people assume you have a degree, whether you have, that's a big assumption. So and when you tell them that you haven't, then there's this big oh my word, is there something wrong with you? But now that's really, really changed. And I think what we have done, and certainly we've looked at what do people bring as individuals? What skills do you have? We've extended our recruitment. So power days where you see a diverse range of people. I always say to people, hey, today is as much about you knowing whether you want to come work for us as you work, as you work. And I think that's the important thing to make sure you balance, and that we continue to chip away at it and share our stories about what we've done. What's been really powerful today is learning from different people and taking things away for people that haven't had a traditional route and sharing those stories with everybody that you talk to outside of this room. That's important.
Then I had another follow-up question. So, Ali, I think you mentioned employee research groups, ERGs. Do you have any suggestions for folks who are looking to start, grow, get their ERGs to be received and listened to at their companies? What have you seen as successful strategies for ERGs?
I think it depends. It depends on your company culture. So I don't think there is necessarily a formula. Everyone knows an ERG is employee resource group. Basically, you have your Women at 2 Sigma or women's group, there's an, Out Sigma, which is our LGBT group. There's different groups depending on different things. As I said, I think it depends on the company and the culture, so there really isn't necessarily a formula. I think, going back to the authentic self, I think if you feel that need, odds are others feel that need, so go do something about it. Go talk to people at your company. How can you bring your skills and your perspective to make the company better for others or make work better for others, right? I just feel otherwise I think you can get too caught up in I'm just doing my day-to-day, for me, it's managing now, it used to be coding. How can you make that environment better? As a manager, I think about how can I make the environment as best as I can for the folks who work for me. And I think if everyone takes that perspective, then you're adding your own value to the company to make it better for others.
I think, so just to add to that very briefly, so one of the things we've done is that I look after the Women in Tech chapter for Capital One in the UK, and you opt out, you don't opt in. And that's a massive difference to our US colleagues, which is where you opt in rather than opting out. And there's a size and scale thing there. But and that's technologists and non-technologists. So I think that's one of the things. If you set something up, make sure that you're not excluding anybody.
Yes. It needs to be.
And give everybody the option to join if you choose to do that model, or everybody you opt out, not opt in.
Right. I mean, I assume everyone has basically heard this, but it should be an everyone conversation, not a for women saying yes. There should be more of us. It needs to be everyone involved and understanding why. There are all the stats. If you need stats about how diverse teams drive better innovation, which drives business value, but it needs to be an everyone conversation, not just whoever's in the kind of more minority.
Well, I think, Rachel, you gave a great example of your colleague, right, who stepped in and sort of was like, and so really thinking about how we draw allies out of all of the spaces. I just want to flag, because this just happened recently, but the director of the National Institutes of Health in the United States, Dr. Francis Collins, just made a proclamation that he will no longer be accepting invitations to speak on all-male panels. Oh. So I think that there are also small things that are actually really big things, especially as you go up leadership chains and folks have more power, saying actually, no, sir, I will not be on your panel because there are no women's subject matter experts on there is another thing that is going to be really effective.
And I know we have to go, but I want to add one more thing. I think that having good mentors helps as well.
And sponsors.
I can't say enough about having good mentors. Granted, initially, all of my mentors were male, but they were older and very smart, wise men. And so I think having mentors, I can't say the value that helps. If you don't have a mentor, I think you're truly doing it the hard way.
Right.
If you're sitting there reinventing the wheel and trying to figure it out, I think you're definitely doing it the hard way. And people ask me all the time, how do I get a mentor? There's somebody you admire, there's some book you read, there's somebody on LinkedIn you're with, you'll be very surprised. I get asked to mentor people at least 4 to 5 times a week. I don't have the capacity to do more than I'm doing, but you would be very surprised if you just ask a question, how many people would say, sure, and make it convenient for them. I just need 30 minutes every 3 months or whatever it is. But I think having a mentor is really important. And that should be someone you admire, someone who you want to be like, you aspire to be, and just asking the critical questions. I'm trying to get from point A to point M. Out of curiosity, is there something I should be doing different? You won't believe how valuable that conversation could be. So I want to make sure I add mentorship in there, because it does help too when you go through rough stuff as well.
Yeah, and also say if you have any more than like 3 or 4, 4 years experience, you should be mentoring someone.
Yeah,
you should be find the poor college or I guess university graduate and go help them. Right? Help them the way you had hoped you had been helped, at that point in your career. You don't need to have 20 years experience to suddenly be, oh, now you're very senior, you can mentor. Or even someone, who has similar career experiences but has a different skill set.
Agreed.
Right? Where you're like, look, I really want to get good at X, you're really good at X, I'm sure they think you're good at Y, and you can mutually mentor each other. It doesn't have to be a more senior person with more junior person type relationship.
And I think the bit to remember as well is that there's an advocacy piece there. The more people that you know, the more people get to know you and the way you work. You were mentioning this morning, Mico, about when you've got your accountant and they were helping, because they know and understand you, they are a massive advocate for you. Yes. So having a mentor and having somebody that knows you more is also, when it comes to going, yes, I know. So advocacy is also quite important.
Yeah, and also the guys in the audience that I hear, feel free to mentor women.
Yes.
Right? I know it's this weird.
And yay, guys, for coming.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I know it's this weird situation with women and dynamics, but I also think, as I said, I had mostly male mentors, that's important. Then I have men that are mentored by senior women as well, who are struggling, and they're like, I got to get this sorted out. And they seek very senior women to mentor them. I've seen that a lot. So I just want to encourage the guys as well that, if you see a female that's struggling, you may not understand it. I get Mars and Venus, but try to pull a little bit. You okay? I mean, can I help you? Is something going on wrong? Why don't we meet, especially if you're a manager, why don't we meet once a month, 30 minutes, have a coffee, and why don't we talk about what you're doing, right? Because sometimes women are not as forthcoming, but if you say, let's have a coffee, talk for 20 minutes, they'll, oh yeah, okay, fine. And then you can have that other conversation. This is bothering me. I got passed up again. I'm not understanding. Nobody talks to me in a meeting.
Yeah. 2 things I'd add is, don't just look for people who are struggling, right? Maybe identify someone with potential that needs a little confidence to realize, right? You can start pulling, watching all of that blossom. And for anyone who's in the room saying, oh, I really want to be a mentor, how could I be a mentor? Go check out the AnitaB.org booth and learn more about our membership pilot program. Woo! There is a mentor platform built into that. Okay, so the clock was blinking, red, 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 stop talking, stop talking. Now it started over, so I'm like, do we get 28 more minutes? Deidre's like, no. Do we get 28 more minutes? Do we have time for questions?
Does anybody have questions?
Yes, questions is a good thing.
Let's take a couple questions.
Yep.
Hello, I'm Beata Young. I'm the founder of Women on IT. And have you guys heard about McKinsey research that proves that men are hired and promoted on potential, whereas women are hired and promoted on proof?
The question,
of
just
course.
for those who might not have been able to heard, was folks' familiarity with the recent McKinsey study that showed that men are being promoted upon potential, while women are being promoted upon proof. And hired, yes. So do we have any?
Question regards to the positive discrimination or positive action, because I'm pro positive action because we need all the help that we can get, and I would be, pro positive action or discrimination because that's the reality. We are not hired because we just don't look like that guy in front of us. We are not promoted because we don't, because we have completely different set of standards. Is she good enough? Has she done the job before?
Correct.
Is she going to struggle with all these tasks we're going to throw in front of her, and she probably cannot manage because she's got a fragile little mind?
Well, so one thing I will say, and I am aware of some of the statistics, I think we also have to get better about bragging about ourselves. Like, I've been trying really hard to learn this.
Celebrating the wins.
Like, yeah, like, and I say the word brag, and brag usually sounds, like you're boasting, but I literally tell folks I talk to and work with, especially women, like feel ridiculous, right? And you're probably doing just enough, especially in an interview type situation where you only have a very short period of time, so you should talk through how amazingly wonderful and fabulous you are, right? In your head you may be going, oh God, but I did that one thing wrong, because we are horribly hard on ourselves. But if you don't advocate for yourself and advocate with a bullhorn, no one else is going to do that for you. Because people can say, fix the promotion system. Okay, people have been playing with promotion systems. Do committees. And there's never organizationally, there's never a silver bullet answer for these things. But I just feel like, as I said, I'm into what can I do, or what can I tell people to go do for themselves. And I just think you just have to, own your own bullhorn and practice, interviewing or talking to others and be like, okay, do I sound like an idiot now? Do I sound like a complete ass because I'm saying how amazing I am?
No, it's called you're full of yourself. But just remember that men are full of themselves as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between self-confidence and self-belief.
Yes.
And it's all about self-belief. And I think that's the difference. A lot of people mix confidence and belief up. And it is around, it's not that you're not confident, because a lot of women are, but it's about belief, and that's a big factual difference. And those are the things that the more you believe in yourself, the more others will believe in you. And it's how do we continue to share stories and give people their confidence to be able to believe in themselves. And that's where you can start to do that.
Sometimes it's easier to brag on each other than it is to brag on yourself. So don't be afraid to promote your female colleagues who are just killing it, right?
Yes.
I've been super impressed by folks who aren't available to be on a panel, for example, but then instead of just saying no, say, but you have to meet such and such woman who's going to be an amazing person to fill in. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Mariam. Just to add to what Ali's saying, just two really short stories I wanted to share with the crowd. Recently, I was telling guys at work, they are just guys at work, not just one other female engineer, that I was telling them, I'm helping with anitaB.org, and I'm helping with others' conferences and so on, and he just responded with, that sounds like bragging, and my immediate reaction was, I need to defend myself, but before I could say that, he's like, I'm actually jealous that I don't have anything to brag about.
Okay.
That was a great story.
That's
and
a
the
great
other
answer.
one, there was this guy I was interviewing, and I was at the end of the interview panel, and when I went to see him, he was like, oh, I thought you were someone from HR just because you brought water.
About that.
Oh, I didn't realize you were head of your department and so on.
Yeah.
And I've hired him because I see the potential to educate him.
Yes, correct. Yes.
And I don't want to miss the young woman in the middle.
Yeah, there's
who's
a
been
person in
raising
the
her
back
hand
who's
since the
been.
beginning.
She hadn't yet. So the last two.
Can I
Okay,
ask
two
a
more.
question?
So we're going to do. Oh,
Yeah. Just wanted to follow up on what you said about bragging about yourself. I feel like when women brag on themselves, then they come across as pompous.
Yeah, as I
and
said,
so
full of yourself.
how do you tread that line?
Well, I mean, I think there's, how do you represent your accomplishments in a consumable way, right? And it's not, you're not making up statistics, you're just representing your work. Right, and it's I've run this this service or run this thing with X hundreds of millions of customers, or I've fixed more bugs than anyone else. Like things that no one can refute. I think it's more just making sure you're you're talking about them in terms of how the work you do is impactful. It's not like you're making stuff up. It's more like literally thinking about like what are your personal sound bites. And I'm sure, like I remember at like multiple Grace Hoppers, oopsies, that's my go home to my kids alarm that goes off every day. Sorry, I forgot I was on in the time zone. Anyway, I think there's a lot. I actually just totally lost my train of thought.
Well, because you're thinking about your kids now.
Yes, I am now.
I would also just add, there are things you can do just with your language. So
yes.
We tend to use a lot of passive verbs to describe the work that we do. We participated in, we contributed
yes.
to. You think about your leadership role. You managed, you led, you innovated, right? And so
yes.
even just thinking about reframing from passive language to active
yes.
language, and think about that too if you're the one who's providing a recommendation, especially for a woman, because there's a lot of data that shows that recommendation letters are very gendered in language between men and women. So did you think of your final thought? Yeah.
I just had one thing quick to add to that. So just recently, again, at an event, when I sit down, because I'm the main salesperson, I'm not good at doing the bragging, but I have to tell what our company has done. So I sat on the couch with his CIO and I explained to him, hey, we saved Shell 50 million. We saved Qatar Gas 212 million. I said I headed those projects. Those are like pinnacles of my career. And I had the CIO look at me. So we're sitting like this was me here. And he goes, when did you do all this? So I went, in my career, like I've been doing this for 10 years. I said, that's why I'm running BI Brains. And he goes, so all this stuff is like your stuff? I go, no, I have a team of people that do the work. There's like 8 people that worked on those projects. And that's this happened like last week. I keep saying last week was interesting.
You had a heavy week.
Event.
It was, yeah, but that's very often happens. When I describe stuff our company has done, for a long time we never did use cases, like written use cases.
Yeah,
now we've
important.
actually done it because I'm just tired of answering the question of like, were you the one that do it? We have a podcast that's very popular. Do you know one of the reasons I brought back my podcast recently is I have my customers on my podcast telling the story for me. I literally just got tired of it. Not that I mind doing it, but the amount of questions I get asked about, so what has BI Brains done? And then they ask, so you were involved in this? Last week as well, I had a woman say, where do you get all this knowledge? I said to her, well, it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert, right? I probably became one in 3 years.
Right.
I'm like, I eat, live, and breathe this stuff. Like, I worked at 50 companies in the first couple of years. So but I've taken the stance where I don't say that stuff unless I have to, and maybe I need to fix that.
And I think just one thing to add when you say about being comfortable is listen to just going back to reinforcing, listen to what other people say about you and try and internalize it. And how do you make it feel like it's you? Because it really is quite uncomfortable sometimes.
It is.
And even for us, it's not the most natural of things to do, but listen to what other people say and then internalize that. And then put it in your own words.
But don't listen to those haters that Mico was talking about this morning.
I would actually just add to that, like a lot of times we're taught like to go get constructive criticism from people. What can I do better? What can you tell me like what am I doing wrong? Sometimes if you go and you say, tell me what I'm doing, what I'm really, really good at.
Yep.
Tell me what I'm excellent at. What is my superpower? I had a mentor once said, you have to figure out your superpower and then tell everyone that this is your superpower, because then we're not comics, right, with like capes and stuff. So our superpower isn't like on a cape somewhere. So if you can tell people what your superpower is, then they'll know how to leverage you.
Okay, so we're going to take one more question. I'm sorry, Deidre, I know I talk a lot. And then, but don't be afraid because we are all going to be out there at the reception. So this conversation doesn't stop here. So we have one more question in the middle.
Oh, hi. Oh, should I?
Oh, that helps. Thank you.
It's
was like, who's
awkward
talking?
of being the last question standing up. I'm Diana. I'm a software engineer, and I was wondering it's kind of like a 2-part question, like what your self-care plan is, because like a lot of this stuff, right, the microaggressions, self-care. Like microaggressions, like and then being the person that's like gonna have the grace to educate, like it's very tiring. And then the other aspect of it is like, do you ever get scared of, so one thing I've experienced before, like more on a micro scale, because I'm not like super prominent yet, is like sometimes when I come in with a lot of light, that brings out fear in someone who's not ready for that, and then they unknowingly retaliate. So I'm afraid of like, the more I grow, what if I get more of this? And then like Gamergate happens to me. So what are your thoughts on that? Thanks.
So you said, okay, just so I understand, the first question was about self-care, and the second one is about dealing with haters.
Yeah.
All right. Can I'll just answer two quickly, and I'll let you ladies go. Self-care, I showed my routine earlier, but there's a book called The 5 a.m. Miracle by Hal Gregson, I think it is. That book is, I met him when he started out, he was doing a 5 a.m. craziness, and I thought he was crazy. But that really helped me to get the morning routine together. I don't know about everybody else, but I feel like if I can't get myself together, I'm not the best that I could be. And I have a team to deal with, and I had to really manage emotional, like get my EQ in check, because in the morning I just get up and go, my email would take control of my life, and then I wouldn't be the best person. Now I deal with me before everybody gets in, not to mention I work. So I think you have to develop a routine. That's number one. When it comes to dealing with haters, my best friend's dad said something to me. It was like 6 years ago. That was the best thing I ever heard. I was distraught. Something had happened, and someone retaliated, and it really hurt. And he said, let me just tell you something. He said, his dad went to Harvard, right? So he was trying to get me to go to Harvard anyway. So he was like, you need to tell Mico this for me. If you don't have haters, you are not successful enough. So get ready, get accustomed, because it's going to keep coming. He said, so keep it moving. So one of the things that I always look at is just keep running, because eventually they'll stay there doing whatever they're doing, and you're going to pass by. Just limit your energy. That's one of the things that's important, is don't spend energy on that stuff, right? You just sometimes have to bypass it and just keep moving. You can't limit yourself because of someone else's insecurities. I have told a couple people that insecurity does not look good on you. It is ugly. If anybody in here is insecure, please, it is an ugly coat. Do not wear it. Everybody sees it, and it's great, and it smells. All right.
So self-care. So I run a lot. Is my processing time. I'm not a very nice person if I've had a bad day and I haven't been out for a run. But I also, the other thing I do is surround myself with people at work and at home that I listen to more. And I've learned that over the years, that actually, rather than, my team are pretty good at calling it, and they'll help and do. One of my lovely team is here. They genuinely care about each other and get to know each other as well, and connect on it, and have people around, surround yourself with people that do, and the ones that you can feel comfortable when you're having a bad day, that you can just go at. And that doesn't matter who it is, right? So those are my two self-care things, and when I get to the point where becomes too much, I put my trainers on and go for a run. And then when it comes to haters, I think there's two things. So the first thing is, as I said earlier, kill them with kindness. People that have a particular bias can't deal with it because they want to raise something out of you.
Yep.
So
disarm the gun.
They do. So just the more you smile, and people have heard me say this more than once, is kill them with kindness rather than what it doesn't. A lot of people can't deal with it. And then the second thing I would say is remember that people have different journeys and different experiences, and often they're coming from a position where they're probably identifying biases in themselves, and then the easiest thing for them to do is to try and put that bias onto you and make it feel like it's you that's got the problem, or that it's your thoughts. So therefore, there's something there. So those are the two things I would say.
Yeah, I'd say self-care. Take all your vacation. Like no one cares that you worked the extra week and gave up the week of vacation. Like, it sounds silly, but I'm actually taking a 2-week vacation. I'm very excited. I haven't taken a 2-weeker in a while. Actually, I'm coming back over to Italy with my family. But just take it. No one's going to care you worked the extra week or extra couple of days. Never give up vacation first. In terms of self-care, I have 2 small kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 15-month-old. So my mornings are very non-deterministic, as I tell people. So I think part of it is understanding what recharges you. There's tons of books out there. Try this, do this. Are you an introvert? Are you extrovert? I love people. I get recharged by like having dinner with friends. So I invite people over all the time. That's like myself, like, and I love to cook. I'm a procrastinator, if you've heard of this. Like, so when I'm stressed, like I've been baking sourdough bread like crazy lately. People who've worked for me, one of my old coworkers from like 10, 15 years ago is here. I used to bake cookies all the time. But to me, like that was my self-care, was baking for others. And then in terms of, the haters, this sounds silly. I actually love when people underestimate me, because that just gives me a better opportunity to blow them out of the water.
Agreed.
And so like, I love challenges. And so I almost take it upon myself as like a personal challenge to figure out like, how do I just, show them how fabulous I am? Which can be hard, but I try to flip my mindset in my head versus oh, they're holding me back, to, oh, they're just, giving me a huge opportunity. But I also think too, while it's easy to say, you should also evaluate, is it the environment you're in, or is it one or two people? Because there are times I've been in environments that in hindsight, I've realized they were just toxic. Mm-hmm. And so every so often you have to just realize it's not you, it's the environment. And if you're not sleeping at night, because I will do that when things aren't quite right, or not eating, or not things just aren't quite right. Sometimes you just have to take yourself out. And that's not a failure on you, that's a failure on the environment and the people who are in charge of that environment. And that's not a failure, that's success, you knowing that that was unhealthy for you and that you did something about it.
All right. Well, we are over time. I've really enjoyed this conversation, though, and I think we have a few closing remarks, and we'll be at the reception. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, awesome and awesome. How do you feel today? Hold on. I want to thank our panelists for taking their time today to share their experiences and their expertise with us. Thank you so much, Stephanie, Allie, Mico, and Rachel. We appreciate you very much. I'd like to also thank our gold and silver sponsors. I did list them out this morning for their financial support to make today's event a success. Do you think it was a success? Yes? Yes, good. I'm glad. I also want to just make sure I highlighted our community sponsor, 2 Sigma, today. So they're specifically here with our London community. I also want to just take this small moment to give a special thanks to our needtobe.org London community members who served on the local committee responsible for helping to bring such a wonderful event to you today. If you don't mind, just give me 2 seconds to acknowledge them. Lisa Lane, Lead Business System Manager, Data Analytics and Enterprise Systems at Eurostar, and our Community Leader Volunteer. Where is she? We have Asil Ataiva, researcher at Imperial College, London. Where are you? Right here. Sasha Sankova, Senior Software Engineer, Makuju, and Community Leader. Miriam Umar, Head of Quality Assurance at Kaplan Systems. Jean Ashley is an ambassador for Google Women Tech Makers and the founder of Techno Day. Where's she? Right here. Agul Zagadulina, ambassador for Google Women Tech Makers. Barchu Karubuk. Bush. Quant Dev at NatWest Markets. I'm sorry, I was really trying, and I got off. Thank you. So thank you so much for your efforts. I appreciate you working tirelessly to help us pull this together for the members here in London. So I hope today that you've brought your networks, that you have gained knowledge of best practices, and you have actual tactics that you can walk out of here today with to make your life better personally and professionally. And it's also the things that you can actually implement right away. We at needtobe.org invite you to join our London community and continue to participate in future events. We'd also like you to become a member of needtobe.org by signing up to receive other opportunities to expand your skills and your professional network. Please stay today and enjoy the reception, eat, be merry, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you.